Good morning, I'm Adam Sexton. It's been a stunning series of developments this month in the race for president, with an assassination attempt on former President Donald Trump, followed by President Joe Biden dropping out of the race and then endorsing Vice President Kamala Harris as his successor. She has enjoyed a record-breaking fundraising haul, but the expectation is a hard-fought, very close race lies ahead. Here this morning to discuss this month of upheaval are New Hampshire Democratic Party Chairman Ray Buckley and New Hampshire State Committee, Republican State Committee Chairman Chris Ager. Gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
So, Chairman Buckley, let's start with you and the developments in your party. Does Vice President Harris give the Democrats a better chance of winning than President Biden?
Well, certainly nationally, but here in New Hampshire, you've already seen the poll numbers change significantly. Two different polls had her leading Trump here in New Hampshire by either 6 to 7 points, and that's at this point. And you know, we've got such a strong organization going. We've 16 local offices, over 100 employees. We're out there. We're going to be spending the weekend knocking on doors and doing it the old-fashioned way with grassroots organizing.
And, you know, obviously there's some question of how much of this is legit and how much of it is just excitement. I got some stats from the coordinated campaign, a 280% increase in requests to volunteer. That's off the charts.
Oh, it is. And even like the other night when Governor Whitmer was here and we were expecting like 40 people to show up at a house party, and over 250 people showed up. The level of enthusiasm is amazing. And we haven't even heard the vice presidential pick yet. The convention is going to be something. We've got a lot of people that a month ago weren't too interested in going to Chicago, but now are like, hey, do you got an extra room? So it's going to be an amazing convention in August.
So, Chairman Ager, clearly Republicans would have preferred to run against President Biden, but now Harris is the likely nominee and opponent. So what is the case now against Kamala Harris?
So I think it doesn't matter who the nominee is. It's the Republican Party is running in contrast to the Democratic Party's policies. So if you're happy with the last 3 years, if you think it went better than the Trump presidency, then you might want to vote for Kamala Harris. But if you're like me and most people I know, with inflation hitting hard at the pocketbook, you know, concerns about the border, crime, you know, the Republicans have better policies that we're going to try to contrast with the Democrats, whether it was Joe Biden or Kamala Harris. I do agree with my counterpart that there is enthusiasm in the Democratic Party now. But if you go back to 1988, Dukakis was up by about 17 points in July. So we do agree, I think we both agree, this is going to be a hard-fought race. It's by no means over, and we're going to fight to the finish line, and I feel very good about our chances. But Kamala Harris is going to be a formidable opponent, and we're going to fight right to the bitter end.
I did not have Dukakis on my scorecard today, but it's an interesting transition because Chairman Buckley, you know, he ended up being portrayed as too liberal to be president, and obviously in that 2020 primary in which Kamala Harris ran, a lot of candidates ran hard to the left, and she did too. Is her record going to be a liability down the stretch?
Yeah, Governor Dukakis is an amazing man, but he really was too nice to be in politics. Kamala Harris is a prosecutor, and she's going to prosecute the case against the 34 times felon. So it is going to be, the race is whether you want Donald Trump to come back. Interesting, the 3 issues that were brought up. Immigration, crossing border, is lower now than it was during Trump. Inflation, lower now than Trump. Crime, significantly lower than Trump. So all of these issues are working in our direction. We're feeling quite positive. And how it's going to spill over onto the state races is going to be, I think, a phenomenal year, very similar to 2008.
You know, Kamala Harris did not run a good primary campaign here. Chairman Ager, do you think that, you know, past his prologue and we're going to see those same weaknesses surface again?
Well, we're going to hope to highlight the same reasons that Granite State Democrats rejected her in 2020. She got down to 3% before she dropped out. We're going to try to highlight the same policy positions that she has and let the voters decide. We do believe that she was very tough on crime in San Francisco, but then she changed her tune with the BLM riots, and she kind of encouraged people to support bail for those criminals. And so, you know, we've got to figure out which Kamala Harris is running first. And then on immigration, you know, 15 million illegal aliens in the country. yeah, that doesn't sound like she did a good job as border czar. And so we're going to highlight those things. And let's have a fair, open, honest debate on the issues and policies. And I think at the end of the day, Republicans are going to come out on top to bottom of the ticket.
You mentioned debate.
You said debate.
I was going to say, so, yeah,
I was going to jump
these
in.
candidates, I mean, already President Trump is kind of saying, hey, we need to wait and see. Should he be debating Kamala Harris?
If she is the nominee, but July 11th, the entire Democratic establishment was solidly behind Joe Biden. He was going nowhere. So let's see if Kamala Harris comes out of the convention as the nominee. I've read his, the headlines do not portray what actually President Trump said. He said, hey, let's wait and make sure she comes out of the convention, and then he absolutely will debate her. And so I'm looking forward to that debate. I hope it stays on September 10th, as was previously agreed to with Joe Biden. But Joe, the last debate didn't go so well for the Democratic Party. I think the public is owed a debate between Kamala Harris and Donald Trump, and I think that will happen. The Trump campaign absolutely does want to debate her, but I think it's premature until you know who comes out of the convention. Committed delegates, I don't think any delegates are. I don't pretend to know what the Democratic Party, how their inner machinations go with picking people, but I don't think anybody's committed to Kamala Harris legally, so who knows what's going to happen between now and then. So let's just wait and see, and then let's have a debate. I would love to see a debate. The American public is owed a debate.
Chairman Buckley on the debate.
We are very much looking forward to it, and she will be the nominee by the end of next week. So we'll see what Donald Trump says after that.
So the nominee by the end of next week. How do you respond to the critics who say this is a pretty undemocratic process for a Democratic Party?
Well, what we do when we vote in primaries and caucuses, we're electing delegates. Delegates are free to vote any which way they want. There's no rule that says they have to vote for whoever candidate they were pledged to, because they were pledged, not being held to anything. And that's how I started off the meeting Sunday night with the 25 delegates. I said, you are free to do anything. You should not let anyone bully you in any way. You should just make up your decision. It is your decision and yours alone. And I was just trying to explain what the rules were. And the next thing I know that there was a motion to endorse Kamala Harris, and all 25 by roll call voted for her. It was all over within half an hour. And I thought, sure, it was going to be more questions about how the convention is going to work and all that sort of stuff. And they just had no interest. They were excited and ready to go.
The age issue was obviously a huge component for President Biden, and that's frankly why he's out now. Is that argument that was being made by Republicans, Chairman Yeager, going to backfire now that President Trump is the oldest nominee? No, I don't think so. And part of the issue is, if you go back to Ronald Reagan, we're not going to hold Kamala Harris's youth and inexperience against her. Let's look at her policy positions, what she has done. If you looked at the split screen between Donald Trump and Joe Biden, we'll have another case to do that with President Trump and Vice President Harris. And look at the vitality of the person, their mental acuity, what positions they stand for. That's what we should be looking at. And, I get dizzy because a few weeks ago, age was not an issue. Joe Biden was great. Now it's, Trump, the age. I don't think age ever was the issue. It's can you do the job? And the American people are going to decide that. President Trump did it 4 years ago. We think he can do it again. He's going to show that. And I really, really do want to have that debate so that the American people can see the two side by side. And let's have a fair, tough, open, honest debate, and then let the American people decide. And Chairman Buckley, to Chairman Yeager's point there, can Democrats make the age argument with a straight face, given that they were just backing the oldest nominee ever just a few weeks ago?
Well, fair play.
Yeah. All right, turnabout that it is. Quickly before we wrap up, political violence, a huge issue. How do you turn down the temperature in this country? Quickly, Chairman Yeager.
Well, I think first of all, Chairman Buckley and I have been trying to do that in the state. There are some deranged individuals out there who could be triggered, but it's those individuals who are the problem. And so if we do our part and try to keep the rhetoric down, we can kind of help mitigate that. We have had the Concord Police Department did arrest a gentleman who keyed cars and made threats against Republicans. They did an extremely good job. That was a deranged individual. And so as parties, I think our job is to keep the rhetoric down so we don't incite someone. But also, we have to remain vigilant. If you see something, say something.
And Chairman Buckley, from you.
You know, there is no place for violence, and certainly the rhetoric. And I think we were all disappointed with President Trump's speech last Thursday night, where he was, you know, saying, "Go after them, fight. If you're a supporter of mine, you know, you've got to hold up." It was really crossing the line, especially after just a week after the incident in Pennsylvania.
All right, gentlemen. All right, we'll take the fight to another time, but appreciate your time here on Close Up, and we'll be right back with our one-on-one interview with Joe Kelly Lovasso.